Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is United Stand. It is the Sunday show. Mark isn't with us tonight. He's following the Super Bowl, which is also tonight. So do follow him when that comes around later. I'll get your thoughts in on who you think might actually be taking the crown there as well. But we are talking United. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. It is going to be brutal. We are going to be dropping players. We're going to be dropping players left, right, and centre, going off yesterday's performance. Levin's in the house with me. Levin, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right. Like, I'm doing as good as you can be doing, innit?
I was expecting that next line, mate. Exactly. Expecting that line. Kev, welcome to the Match Day Vlogs, mate, yesterday. Top man, freezing cold. Credit to you, mate, for hanging on in there. It wasn't a nice day, was it? But back in the warmth tonight. You've got the app back on, mate, and happier, it seems.
I'm actually really loving Levin's optimism there. It actually cheered me up for a minute, but I can't pay it over this. I am at rock bottom, the lowest of the low. I'm not going to lie to you. And the hat's back on because it went down the storm the last time I wore it. There was Kevin M in there, the real slim Kev 80 and all that. So it's back on for the comment section. That's
Kev has just literally teed up the comment box now straight away with that one. He knows his game. Yeah. He set it up there. Beth, obviously, also there yesterday. You wasn't a happy bunny yesterday, was you, Beth? It was angry Beth yesterday outside Old Trafford. But you've had a sleep. You've had a full day off. I suppose seeing Tottenham drop points, West Ham drop points. It's not been a bad Sunday after what was yesterday, was it?
No, it's not bad, but it just annoys me even more that we've not capitalised on the points that we should have capitalised on. And honestly, yesterday I was so angry. Like, even when you get home, you start thinking about it today, a bit more optimistic. But then it showed the fixtures for the week, and I realised I've got to go back on Tuesday. So it put me in a bit of a down mood again. But hopefully, we'll see something different from the last 3 games. You just got to keep trying to be positive, don't you?
Yeah, well, you try. I mean, I'm with you on that one. I mean, I already knew that Brighton was there, and as I was walking out of Old Trafford yesterday, having spoke to everyone, it was like, oh God, rinse and repeat in 2 days, pretty much. That's what we've got to go through, except it's at night and it's probably going to be colder and more miserable. I looked at the forecast as well, and that was crap. So I'm just like, oh God, the outlook for this week just looks poor for us. But you never know. You never know. Anyway, tonight we're getting into it. We are dropping players tonight. We're going to talk about who we think Ralph should drop. Do we think Ralph will drop them? Reasons why. Getting into detail about that. Realistic and our own views on each one of these as well. But I think we've all got our favourites. Also, I have got Ricky's input, guys, as well. So I will be bringing that in and seeing what everyone thinks of that. But Levin, I'm starting with you, mate. I mean, overall, yesterday, everyone was unhappy. And we're all looking at it now at the team that Ralph's picking. We're looking at it going, surely there's a couple of players in there, maybe a few players in there that could change things around, swapping. Anyone in particular stands out more than anyone? I kind of know where the answer's sort of going with this, but I've got to ask the question in the first place, mate. How many changes would you make right now? And who really doesn't belong in that team or deserve to be in it for you right now?
I'd make 2 changes right now. Pretty obvious changes. I'd take out Rashford and Maguire, bring in Elanga, and my choice would be Lindelof. Look, it's interesting because on the watch along before the game, I said I wasn't too bothered about players getting dropped or not. I understand why people need to be dropped. I just wasn't too bothered about it, just because this season we've all seen where players who are bad have been dropped and we still lose. We still don't play well because ultimately, even the players who we may like or who are the good players in our squad, as a collective, things just don't work right now, and there are just obvious problems. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the players we all think should be dropped are dropped and we still have issues. But in terms of just based off of performances of late, who shouldn't be in the team the next game, you probably would have to say, Maguire and Marcus Rashford, I think would be the 2 obvious ones.
That's it, Kev. Yesterday, mate, you've seen him in the flesh yesterday. You've obviously seen every game this season, but in the flesh, what stood out for you yesterday in our team? What was more disappointing than anything?
The guy that wears the captain's armband. I honestly could not believe in the flesh just how shockingly poor he is. And I spoke to you yesterday after the game and I said I will not repeat, and I won't anyway, what people was saying about Harry Maguire at that game. And I was like, I'm really, really, what my son's 11, right? And he plays football and that, but he was like, Daddy, you know, why is Harry Maguire, why is he standing there? Why is he standing off? Why is he getting turned every time? And I'm like, and then the penny kind of drops, and I'm like, this is supposed to be the captain of Manchester United, supposed to be leading by example and leading this team, a man that's been relegated more than what he's won trophies. And we've spoke about it on the United Stand before about mentality issue and all that at Manchester United. And it does come from the top all the way down. And this guy is, I've stayed off Twitter today, so I don't know whether people are saying the same thing about Harry Maguire or not, but that is my observation from yesterday. Right, okay. Yeah.
Believe me, mate, if you looked at Twitter today, put it this way, he's taking over Phil Jones for Meme Central right now. That's what I would say in terms of Maguire.
That's where we are. That is where we are. Is the fact that I would prefer to have Phil Jones in instead of Harry Maguire. For your argument of who would you take out the team, I was holding back then, but it would have been very two-footed for me to go in. I could have said everyone barring probably David De Gea and Varane, and maybe Sancho as well. He seems to have stepped up a bit. A lot of them. You could change them all, but you can't, because we're down to the bare bones as a squad. You wouldn't be able to change them all. And there's players that are not immune from being criticised at United. And that it starts from the top, from Ronaldo. I'll go as far as to say, really, really disappointed seeing him yesterday, leading the line. Doesn't look interested. Don't expect him to be at Old Trafford next season. And it's not an overreaction from one game. And that breeds through the team. And the question marks have to be after. He should be the main focal point of this team. I've stood up for Ronaldo. I've said he needs a service and that. But yesterday, the kind of vibes you get off him is that is a man that really doesn't want to be at Manchester United. And it's heartbreaking. I was there for his debut. We all know the swan song of him coming back to Manchester United. It was brilliant. We were on air. We could not believe he was coming back. But clearly, that there is something wrong. And that there is loads of players there that, I said it to you yesterday, didn't I? You just disconnected from a group of players, and you can't even really get behind them, because why should I go to a match yesterday and sing the names of these certain individuals when we are getting absolutely nothing back? And look at that couple we spoke to yesterday after the game, Canada, come from Canada to watch that yesterday. And I'm like, dedication, fair play to you, but by God, you shouldn't be subjected to performances like that. It's shocking, mate.
It definitely is. Santino, it was a pleasure to meet you as well, mate. It really was. Credit to you for driving up and then driving back from Kent at that time. Beth, Kev touched on it there. I mean, Ronaldo at the moment. Where are you at with Ronaldo? Because it is a debate now. We're seeing him really being part of the problem, not the whole problem, and no one's blaming Ronaldo fully here, but we are seeing issues in terms of build-up and passages of play, and the link-up more than anything, I think, is what disappointed me. And like Kev touched on it there, Beth.
Yeah, to me, he just seems like he's very out of form. I don't think he's the problem that everyone's making him out to be. Like, if we hadn't have got Ronaldo in, we wouldn't be higher up the table. That's for a fact. And I was watching Mark show the other day, and he mentioned about the Champions League, and I was like, to be fair, that he is the reason why we're still in the Champions League. Obviously, you can't just keep saying that as a reason to defend him. I do think he has been poor the last few games, and yesterday was when I hit the Burnley game and he came on. I thought, that's not the usual Ronaldo we see, because even in the Middlesbrough game when he was missing chances, he still looked up for it. He still looked like he was annoyed at himself and he wanted to try and score. But on the Burnley game, he just didn't seem as much like Ronaldo as what I've seen all season from him and as I've seen from him before. And yesterday I thought the same thing. Usually in challenges, he fights for every ball, he wins every ball in the air. Yesterday, to me, it seemed like it was just little mannerisms that weren't the same. Like, he was getting shoved off the ball a lot more easily than he usually was. And I think it's frustration. I really do. I think it's frustration in himself because he's missing these chances that Ronaldo simply shouldn't be missing. People can say that striker is a graveyard shift for United strikers. He's had a decent amount of chances over the last few games where he should have at least scored a few. I'm not being funny. You've got to. In a team where you're supposed to be where he is, Ronaldo, one of the best strikers in the world, and he's playing at this elite level, you've got to stick a few of them chances. It's not happened for him, but his overall play, I also think is dipped because I think he's frustrated with a lot of the players around him. I think he's been frustrated for some time, and I think he's frustrated in the direction this team's going in. The team, for me, it's not just him. He is part of the issue, but the problem is for me is like, I know for a fact Ronaldo goes into training early every day, he leaves late every day, and I know he wants to win things, he wants to do well. Of course, you've got to turn up on the pitch, but it must be extremely frustrating when you've got players that are nowhere near as good as you, not putting in the same work rate or effort levels to get to that point. So I think there's a lot of frustration there, but I also think that that isn't an excuse. He needs to step up and he needs to start finishing these chances, which I am sure he will start to do. I do think he's on a drought, but I think he'll start scoring again soon, and I won't be surprised if that happens soon enough, because at the end of the day, it is Ronaldo, and you can't, just because he's had a couple of off games, you can't doubt him in that sense. But for me, there's a few more bigger issues in that team. One is our captain, and a few other players that I won't name just not been nowhere near good enough for a while, and yet Ronaldo's getting all the stick.
You will be naming them before the end of the show, Beth. I'll make sure you do on that one. You're not getting away with that. But Kev, go on, mate.
Sorry, I was just going to say one observation from yesterday, and this is where the state of where we are at the minute at Manchester United. We're chasing a game that we're looking to get 3 points from, and we bring on a player that we refuse to move, let move in Jesse Lingard. We give him a few days off, apparently, so he could get his head straight. Now, we are turning to Jesse Lingard to bring him on for Manchester United yesterday, chasing a game. And yet, in another game, Everton, Donny van der Beek plays his first, 90 minutes in 2 years, and it puts in a man-of-the-match performance. And I honestly, I'm thinking about this yesterday, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm like, we can all see it, can't we? And I'm like, what is going on? It's complete and utter madness. Welcome to the madhouse with what is Manchester United.
Do you know what, as well? People are saying about Cavani, he should be starting instead of Ronaldo. When he has started recently, he's been just as bad, if not worse. And I love Cavani, but he's fit once a month, if that. You cannot be relying on him starting every game. And to not start Ronaldo, for me, I even thought it was maybe a mistake in the Burnley game. I just think you have to start him in the state we're in, even though his form's bad, because he is capable. You just know he is. That's just my
Levin, mate. I mean, this is a valid debate. I hear what Beth's saying. I hear what Kev's saying. But one thing you can't deny, mate, is, and I counted about 6 or 7 times, our forward play broke down on Ronaldo yesterday. It did. He was appalling in my eyes yesterday. He really was. I thought he should have put that chance away. I thought, how is this player lost his left foot? I mean, you should know the quality. I mean, the guy has scored over 800 career goals. And I'm just like, I'm looking at him going, he is a shadow of himself, even a shadow of what he started off like this season for us, mate, which wasn't fantastic. It was very good, and we needed him. And like Beth said there, without him, we won't be in Madrid next week, couple of weeks. But the debate has to be there, mate. It's quite obvious that he is one of the problems at the moment, whether it's because he is sort of working with players that aren't on his level, like Beth said then, or if he's like delusion now. It's sort of like, it looks like he knows we're not going to get any better in a way. The body language isn't great either, is it, Levin?
Yeah, it's always frustrated me, the sort of the whole Ronaldo debate thing, just because I think, as our fan base tends to do, it's just taken in the very sort of worst possible way, where when people try to highlight certain negatives about Ronaldo's game, even if his form isn't obviously bad, you know, it's sort of perceived as, why are you trying to pin everything, all our problems on Ronaldo? And that's not the case, right? You know, he's one of the greatest players to ever live. You know, the fact that people are being critical of him isn't really a problem. And now that his form has dipped, I think people are starting to see why that criticism was sort of there. Yeah, he's been very much more limited than I would have expected. I've said this before. You know, I knew Ronaldo, that the Ronaldo we were getting wasn't the same Ronaldo from when I was young, right? I've watched him at Juventus over the past couple of seasons, but it was a bit more start than I thought it'd be. What I would say is Ronaldo still, even with his problems, has the ability to be an elite poacher in the right team, right? And, you know, I believe if he had went to other teams, whether that be the Premier League or not, there's a good chance he'd be sitting on 20-something goals and people are still, you know, calling him the GOAT or whatever. It's just the situation we're in right now at Manchester United. We're not great. He's not great. And, you know, he's not added to us. He's not helped with us not being great, especially in recent games with Rangnick here. The solution, I'll be real, I hate what Beth's saying because the truth is Cavani hasn't been great either. Like, I love Cavani. True. You know, sorry, very Alex, true. If you're watching. You know, I love Cavani. I've been a big advocate for Cavani, but Cavani's not been great either. So what do you sort of do? I've seen people suggesting, you know, maybe do what I think Carrick did it a couple of times where, you know, you play Bruno as a false nine or something. You know, maybe you can get wacky with it, but ultimately we're going to have to play one of the two. So I do hope we start to get them in better form. What I would say, though, is Ronaldo shouldn't be getting on the ball as much as I think he naturally wants to. He wants to come to the ball too much. And like you highlighted, Adam, he's a net negative on the ball for us right now. Like when he comes to get the ball, he doesn't offer us much, right? Like it's never really a positive action that comes from it. So I'd much rather him just stay high up the pitch, try get in the box, you know, just be a poacher. The problem is Rangnick wants a striker who offers more than that, right? He wants a striker who can link plays. The reason why when Ronaldo has linked play successfully, Rangnick's made such a big deal out of it and really sort of highlighted it and praised it because he clearly likes it. The problem is I just don't think we can get that at an elite level from Ronaldo anymore.
That's it. And in his head, he wants to be involved in more. And he looks at that team, I'm guessing here, and thinks, they're not going to get the ball to me. I'm going to have to try and make something happen. And then comes out of what really he should be doing, like Levin says, and then makes himself look like he really is off his game. And really, he should be just jumping, heading them goals in that we know he's good at and taking the chances that come his way. Problem is, we've not really created much. And then we do create chances in a game like Burnley, like Middlesbrough. And Ronaldo didn't start against Burnley, I know, but then he misses them. And it looks even worse. It's hard to say it is. But, guys, I did say I'd bring Ricky's comments in on tonight's show as well, and I'll get the panel's thoughts on this. So I said to Ricky, I said, I know you can't be on the show tonight, mate, but just let me know what you think on certain subjects and players he thinks maybe on his list to drop. So the reply from Ricky was... the reply from Ricky was, I've got it right here, says, I'd love to be there, but I'm pissed in Seville. Oh, no, sorry, wrong message, that one. But he's having a jolly anyway, people. He's having a good time. But, you know, Ricky, he has his way of football. He likes his thinking. So this is Ricky's team. I'll just go out with it straight now. It says, De Gea in goal. Delov, Varane, Lindelof and Shaw at the back. His midfield would be Sancho, McTominay, Matic and Alanga. And Mata at 10. Ronaldo and Cavani competing for the number 9. And Bruno is his third choice, number 10. That's exactly how I would expect Ricky to come in on that. And he did give me a hands-on face emoji, which is quite good for Ricky in terms of his technology skills. So I'm impressed, actually. But we look at it in terms of what we've got. I mean, Kev, I'll come to you on this one. I mean, Martial and Van der Beek being sold has left us issues because we now haven't got an option up front and we haven't got that option in midfield like you touched on there for Everton. Brilliant player. And it's exactly what we're missing right now. So kind of leads to think like, is Ralph really in charge of picking this team and has any say whatsoever? But I mean, we'll get onto that in a minute, actually. But in terms of Ricky's team there, going through it, can you see where he's coming from and can you see it actually being better with them players coming in?
I can see where he's coming from because he obviously loves Matic and Mata, but I'm sorry, I'm not having Mata in that team and anywhere near it. I think I understand, right? And I totally respect Ricky's opinions when he comes out and he certainly explain everything. I know what he means by Mata. He'll keep the ball, retain it, very rarely gives it away. He wouldn't be in my team. Now, Matic, yeah, I think he's an upgrade on what we've got at Manchester United in the middle of the park. I don't know what that clearly says about Manchester United in the middle of the park. Probably says that we're not great, which we aren't. And we know it's not the strongest area of the pitch. Just going back to Donny van der Beek, if you've read the comments that Frank Lampard's actually come out with on Van der Beek, it's more, again, another head scratcher because I'm looking at it. Frank Lampard there, who's a manager who's kind of learning his trade, only just come into management really, and he was going on about how he identified Donny van der Beek, intelligent player, knows he uses the ball well and that. And again, I'd just go back to my point before. It is a head scratcher because that is a department that we are very lightweight in. It's not a competitive area of the field, yet we've let him go out on loan and gets man of the match yesterday. And yet you've got the likes of Frank Lampard saying, I could see there's a player in him. You know, it wasn't really even a gamble, is it? It's not like the Dele Alli gamble where you try to resurrect somebody's career. I think we've always known Donny van der Beek has got it and can do a job if he played in the right position. So, and another head's gone, another head scratcher, really, isn't it?
Is that? I mean, super chat there. And Simone says, I have a question for you all. Do you think Ralph's picking our squad? Because I refuse to believe the hype to have favourites. Look at Donny. I mean, Beth, everyone on the planet can see where our problems are. Opposition can see it. Pundits can see it. I mean, all the fans can see it. Everyone, even the commentators are commentating. I mean, what do you think to Ralph Hasenhüttl's comments about going in on United actually yesterday? Because he made it quite clear and was quite bold with what he was saying in terms of how he knew to play against United straight away. And you know what? I think it was Bruno Sarr, the Wolves manager, was also in a post-match interview very clear about the easiness and how easy it was to play against United. I mean, does Ralph have a say? Because we all see where the problems are, Beth. I mean, you've got to ask that question, haven't you? There has to be something behind it, surely, because they're in so poor form.
I struggle to believe that Ralph isn't picking a team. Like, I can't see a world where that's happening. But then again, it is Manchester United, so you never know. I wouldn't put it past them that if that's the case. And you know what? I'm so glad that Hasenhüttl actually came out and said that, because it's all right us saying it, it's all right the pundits saying it, but an actual an established elite coach for Southampton coming out and saying that about United.
One of his disciples as well, Beth.
Exactly. The players should look at that and be ashamed of themselves. And we were saying it after on the match vlogs that it just seemed like Southampton put more effort into everything they did. And I don't know what it is, because it's like there's clear instructions from Ralph. There is clear instructions there. I just don't know if they're not intelligent enough to carry it out, or they just simply can't be bothered to. But it's like they come out in the interviews and said this isn't enough. Luke Shaw saying we need to do more. Why aren't you showing that on the pitch then? Southampton ran 5k more than us when we were at home. Like that, for me, it's just it's not where United should be at whatsoever. And it's like with players strolling back when goals are conceded. The wingers have to get back. Sancho is doing that very well, but Rashford hasn't done that for a while. And I think to myself, you're coming out and saying you want to do everything for the team. Why aren't you getting back in that situation? Is it a fitness issue? Is there fitness problems there? I can't get my head around it, but I'm glad that Hasenhüttl came out and said that, because it isn't acceptable, the lack of tracking back that some Manchester United players are doing at the moment. And even when they're going for that final ball, it just seems like they're not pushing as hard as what they could be doing. And that isn't acceptable for me, especially when all the fans are in the stadium watching that and they're watching Southampton fight for every ball more than what we are. It's not acceptable. And I think Ralph knows that as well. I think it's hard for a coach that's trying to put these instructions in place and it's not happening. It's like when we were trying to press them off the ball, it just wasn't working. You could see what Ralph was trying to do. We were holding off and then we were pressing in triggers, but the players weren't understanding how to do it. What was happening is certain players would go, certain players wouldn't, and the ball was just going straight through the midfield. And it's like Ralph's probably trying to put these tactics into place, but the players simply can't carry it out. And on the point of Ricky's team, the fact that Matt is being talked about in a starting 11 to me just blows my head off. And not having Pogba or Bruno in the midfield, especially after how Pogba's played the last few games, I mean, I have to disagree with that one, I'm afraid.
Bruno, one of his comments on his socials where since Elanga's been taken out of the team, United haven't won. And then someone came back at him and said, Fred's been taken out of the team at the same time, Ricky. That could be why as well. Well, then Ricky came back with, well, it's since Pogba's come back in the team. There's always the next one for him. And it's just like, he's got his set players that he doesn't like. He's got the ones he likes. he doesn't like Pogba. I mean, to be fair, we can all accept he's probably going to be gone in the summer. And right now, it's just a stopgap. And the bigger problem lies in the summer when having to replace so many midfielders.
On picking a team though, quickly, if Maguire starts on Tuesday, I have to actually think that he is being told to start him. There can't be any other option. There just can't be any other option. I can't process it in my brain. Fair enough, giving him. Well, to me, he shouldn't have given him that chance again in the Southampton game. But if he was wanting to do that, then I don't accept it. But I can deal with it. But starting him again against Brighton, he has to be being told to do it because. Come on now. It is just horrendous defending from him week in, week out.
I mean, Levin, I talked earlier on regarding Maguire. I thought Southampton targeted Maguire, which is why we didn't see as much of Varane in the game because they stayed away from him. It was quite obvious that they were targeting Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire for a reason, Levin, in that game. And both of them players came out of that game. And I spoke to a hell of a lot of people yesterday. And again, guys, apologies for any fan vlogs that did not come on to the United stand yesterday. There was a hell of a lot, and there were a few technical issues along everybody yesterday, it would seem, in the whole process. Not only United, but we were having issues as well yesterday. But there was a lot of people talking, Levin, there, and we're talking tonight about players who should be dropped. Maguire, obviously, like Beth said there. Kev, I don't even need to ask Kev how he feels about Maguire. And he's made it very clear in the last two videos he's done. But Luke Shaw, Levin, he's come in for a bit of criticism yesterday. Some people thought it was okay. Some thought he was absolutely diabolical, the words that were spoken to me. I mean, there is always that moment, and there's a few highlights that someone sent to me the other day about that left-hand side always being wide open because Luke Shaw gets sucked into the middle a lot. It's like hand in hand with Harry Maguire a lot of the time. And tell us now... It's down to reality, like what Beth said then. There's coming a time where these players really, instead of just talking the talk, have to walk the walk. Luke Shaw is one of the biggest talkers right now, mate, but his performance wasn't up to it either. Or do you disagree on that, Levin?
I thought in possession, Luke Shaw was all right. There was a couple combinations he had with Sancho and Pogba on the left that I think were effective, and it was sort of building off of the game before. Obviously, out of possession, he had his issues, but I think a lot of players did. Again, this is where I sort of go into, I think it gets into the territory of, at what point is it really going to make a massive difference? Because I think even if you were to swap out Tellers for sure, we'd still probably have a lot of the same issues as a team that we're having. Sure, I was pissed off when, he played my man onside, and there are obviously issues there. He's not perfect. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to absolve him from blame either. But I do think with Luke Shaw, especially where we've had problems with our attacking unit and going forward and being able to sustain pressure, sustain attacks, I think Luke Shaw's been quite good in that regard. And so for me, he'd stay in the team, even with some of his defensive downsides. All
right, Kev, Luke Shaw, I'm going to bring in the other fullback, Dalot. People are not impressed with Dalot. I mean, Aaron Wan-Bissaka doesn't look like he's getting anywhere near this team at the moment, mate. I mean, the fullbacks right now, because we've had, it's like someone made a comment there in terms of Luke Shaw in his position and playing players constantly onside. That was one thing that Wan-Bissaka constantly did for me as well. Never doubt his one-on-one ability and his tackling, but positionally, actually just being in the right position half of the time. And Maguire comes into that as well. I mean, on Luke Shaw, do you feel like that side of his game has gone backwards? I mean, I had someone spoke to me before. He said, just sell Luke Shaw. We've had enough of him. He's been here longer than a lot of the players in the current team, and we're just not improving with him.
It's a sorry state of where we are at the minute, because I mean, you could probably name, I don't even know, maybe even 8 or 9 of them players yesterday that played for Manchester United that you would really not give a toss about kind of selling. If you'd never seen him play for Manchester United again, you wouldn't be too arsed. On the subject of Luke Shaw, I really don't think he's been the same player since that loss in the Euros for England at Wembley. Some of the form he put in that tournament, Luke Shaw was absolutely fantastic. But he for some reason, this season at Manchester United, he's not brought it forward. And I know that annoys a lot of Manchester United fans or whatever, but he's just part of a team, isn't he, really? when you've got Harry Maguire sort of next to you and he's trying to bark orders at you, which I seen in the flesh yesterday for, you know, you've got Harry Maguire to kind of tell you where to be, telling you what runs to make. And that. Again, I go back to what I say earlier, and I really think it kind of sets the tone for the whole team when you've got somebody like that. It must be quite difficult, actually, for Luke Shaw, because if you've got the captain that's giving you instructions, then obviously you're going to try and follow it through more than anything. So it comes down to a leadership issue as well. But for me, Maguire's a massive part of that. And it's the reason yesterday, after when I spoke to you, I didn't hold back. And I said I was actually shocked in the flesh how bad he was. And I said he looks like somebody who's won a competition to come and play for Manchester United for the day. That's how bad I actually thought he was. And I stick by that. Stick by it.
I mean, yeah, it's perfect to bring up the super chat with you, Beth, because you touched on it before. Christian there says, first game Southampton played under Ralph, they were cramping up. They'd run themselves into exhaustion. Our players just don't have the mentality for it. The mentality is a big thing of mine, and it was pinpointed yesterday. A lot of our players, Rashford, Sancho, were brought up on it, just not putting in the work rate, Beth. Simple as that.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to pinpoint specific players. There's some players that come to mind, but the only person that I actually saw running for every single, two people on the pitch that I saw running for every single thing, and that was McTominay and Bruno, and they weren't the best players on the pitch, but they give everything every single game. I mean, Pogba as well. I can't, in the second half he faded off. You can put that down to fitness because he's not played as many games as he should have to get himself back into fitness, but he's still going for every single challenge. For me, it's Rashford on the left is not getting back nowhere near enough. Even when he plays on the right, he's just not been getting back at all. With Shaw, and this is the reason I'd bring Telles back in. I don't know if he's not giving 100%. I just think IQ wise, he's not quite there on. He's like, I've seen him so many times play players onside this season for goals, and it's always him that's playing him onside. And I just think, Shaw, why can't you just get back there? And I agree that there should be someone telling you at the back, there should be someone leading that line and making sure everyone is playing them offside and they're in the right position. But a lot of times Shaw is out of position defensively, and it's like yesterday when you see him trying to drag that person, that I don't know who it was, back, with the striker back, because he couldn't get back in time. It's because he's not positioned properly as well. I don't know if it's because he's been told, but going forward, I didn't see him integrate with the attack as much as I would want my fullback to. Same from Dalot really, but I feel like Dalot did it a little bit more. Shaw passing back a lot of the time back to Harry Maguire and not making that overlapping run as much as he could have done. And for me, that's a problem. And that's where I'd like to see Telles come in and get them crosses in. Luke Shaw last year, the best left back in the Premier League and one of the best in Europe for me. But this year he's been totally not himself. And I think Telles in there would do a better job, to touch on the last question. But players not running enough, it shows in the statistics, and it shows on the goals that we're conceding. All you have to do is rewind the goals that we've conceded in the last few games, and you can see players walking back. You look at other teams and you can see them sprinting back to the byline. You watch Liverpool, Salah and Mane are both at the byline defending for the team. You watch United and it's usually one-on-one or people left open as well. And I also think that the weakness of Maguire in there and only having McTominay as the CDM, who's not a proper CDM, is maybe another reason why the fullbacks aren't getting forward. Because you look how, I'm bringing up Liverpool again, it's so frustrating, but how Liverpool get forward with their fullbacks, they've got such an engine in midfield to cover them, and the centre-backs atop Van Dijk and Matip are both very, very good centre-backs, so it's easier for them to be allowed to do that and link up with the attack. For us, I think it's not as easy for Shaw and Dalot to go and link up, because you've got Maguire, who's a liability at the back that we've seen numerous times, especially on pace, and McTominay can't cover the ground because he's not a proper CDM. So there's quite a few issues in that team, but going for every challenge and winning every ball is one of them. And it's not all players. Like I said, Bruno and McTominay go for it every time. They're the ones that just stand out for me. But there's players there that repeatedly are starting and walking back from losing possession. And that's what annoys me the most. If you're going to decide not to pass and take on quite a few people and get depossessed and then not sprint back and try and win the ball, that's when I'll be annoyed. And that's happened a few times with Rashford as well, which I don't like to see, because it's Rashford. You would think he would win every ball and try and do that, but it's not been happening.
No, I don't really agree with
welcome
that.
to the members club, Dean Bennett. Before
he
just
is
move
walking
on now
back
as well, guys.
No, that's not what I disagree with. That's not what I disagree with. But I think there's certain things. I think there's certain things you're saying that are spot on, sure. But there's certain aspects of what you're saying that aren't true. For one, if you look at the past couple of games where we've played Sancho, Pogba, and Shaw on the left, they've basically been the main attacking output that we've had, and their combinations on the left have been what has been the most successful form of our attacking output over the past couple of games. So I don't think that's fair. The whole aspect of he has to push forward,
as he should do.
but you don't need your fullback to get forward and bomb forward. It's a structure and a system decision. You mentioned Liverpool, right? That's a tactical decision by Klopp, right? That is specifically for them. Not every team does that, right? You look at City. Their wing backs are more inverted and they stay a bit deeper and help in progression that way. You don't have to have your fullback bomb forward. It's all about what works best for the team structure. And it wouldn't make sense to have Shaw bombing forward the way you want him to, because we're playing two very attacking eights in Pogba and Bruno. So if we had Pogba and Bruno also forward, then Shaw also forward, as soon as we lose the ball, there's nobody at the back. And you, like you said yourself, Maguire, he's way too slow to handle that kind of pressure. So what would happen then? So it's very easy to say, oh, Shaw doesn't get forward. But actually, structurally, the way the team is set up right now, you wouldn't want him getting forward. It'd make us way too weak in transition, which is somewhere we're already quite weak. So it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, that's why I said I think it's the reason why he's not getting forward as much is because of the frailties we have in midfield and defence. We've only got one CDM that isn't a proper CDM, and Maguire as well has frailties that has to be covered. But personally, for me, when Shaw gets forward, that's the best part of his game, and I just don't think we're seeing it enough, especially in the last game.
On Luke Shaw there in that game. Levin, are you okay, first of all, mate? All right, mate. I'll give Levin a minute there. But Luke Shaw did get forward yesterday and was caught out big time at the back.
That's the thing.
It is a problem. It is a problem. I understand what Levin's saying, that you don't want him to. But then again, you've got to look at Luke Shaw's mentality thinking, oh, I've got to try and help out here because we're hitting a brick wall every time. But he's he's in like a crossroad, Luke Shaw, I would say, at the moment. He doesn't know if he should go forwards. But then that comes down to instruction. And you got to look at it. And there is no structure to the team, like Levin said there. Like Beth both.
No, I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. There is a structure to the team.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is at all, mate. I totally disagree. I don't think there is a structure to this team because I've not seen Luke Shaw go forward as much. Then I see him go forward and get caught. There's and the fact that we're constantly swapping wingers over, there's no dynamic between winger and fullback at any point in the game, because as soon as Rashford goes into Luke Shaw, he might as well just not bother. When Rashford goes onto Luke Shaw's side, forget it, Shaw. Don't do anything. It's like everything has to then go down the opposite side. And it's so easy to read. You can see how simple it is to defend against. And Hassan Hootel picked up on this pretty much immediately, because for half an hour we were good. And then we decided to swap. And all of a sudden, Southampton switched. And he even said and alluded to it in his post-match conference. He said it was easy for us then to change. And that's the problem for me. I still don't think the structure is fully there. You may say in certain aspects, yes. But why change it mid-game? I don't understand that side of it at all.
So when it comes to the Sancho-Rashford experiment where they switch around, yeah, it doesn't work. And I hope we don't see more of that, because you're right, it doesn't work.
We're new, aren't we? That's the problem.
But again, when you're saying there's no structure there, why is Shaw doing it sometimes, not the others? That's different. That's more so about positional rotation. All teams do that. There's times when maybe Pogba isn't so high up, so it makes sense for Shaw to be the one that's a bit higher up and Sancho to tuck in a bit into the half space. Positional rotation is different. You can't just say there's no structure there. Again, there's people who aren't understanding what I'm saying, and it's funny because they're going, oh, Levin, what are you on about? We're not City. I'm not saying we're City, but there's structural aspects of the way our team plays that, not every team is going to be the same in that regard. So we can't just sit here and go, Shaw's not getting high enough, going forward enough, he's not bombing forward. In our team, if you look at our team, it wouldn't make sense for him to bomb forward. We'd be way too vulnerable at the back, and we're already vulnerable at the back. Why would you want Shaw also going forward when we have Sancho high up?
You're not getting any crosses
Bruno
in the
high
box.
up. Okay, but we
And
can
you've got
do
Ronaldo
that.
in the box.
And that's
On
again,
that, actually, then. Sorry, Levin, mate. Sorry, I just want to bring
No,
Kevin on that then. Is that why we're ultimately, like Levin says there, he makes a good point. Is that ultimately why we're seeing the likes of Wan-Bissaka being completely left out of this team? And it is very strict in terms of who he's picking now. He's sort of, we're not going to see certain players because has he sort of figured out that certain players are not going to work the way he wants to play in this setup? Because I'm looking at Wan-Bissaka, he looks limited in that side of it. This is the problem now, because if one of these players starts going out of form, and like we're picking on Luke Shaw tonight, whether it's fair or it's not, mate, but at the end of the day, there's certain players that I don't think are even going to get a shout in this team now going forward, because I don't see enough there. I don't see like what Levin's saying completely, but the chopping and changing as well. City there, like Levin says, then you could put any one of them City players in, and they've had their coach for a while and they're drilled, like Liverpool are drilled, like Beth said. Fair enough. But I don't see our whole squad being drilled in the same way. It's just too isolated all over the pitch.
You could, I could throw that back at you and say, well, what is the setup at Manchester United? Because you are sort of scratching your head and going, I think when Rangnick took over, a lot of us were kind of looking to the month of February and thinking this might be the kind of stage when we see some kind of pressing style of football come in. Wan-Bissaka has got a massive job on his hands to get back into this team. I'm not saying he's finished, because if anything, if he gets back into this team, Dalot, I think, is rough around the edges. He's definitely better attacking wise than Wan-Bissaka, but some of the balls he puts in is awful. But again, that is something that could change, not overnight, but that's the kind of thing you can practice on and polish off, your final ball delivery. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. The main thing for me is the identity of Manchester United. Now, under Rangnick, I would have expected, and he ticked the boxes, pressing style of play. From what I was seeing yesterday, Manchester United, they're trying to do it. And I'm not pinning all this down to Ronaldo, but I'll say one thing. Pressing starts from the front. And one thing I did notice yesterday is Ronaldo, and fair enough, he's 37 years of age, is not going to be as intense on the press as somebody who's in the early 20s or whatever, a teenager in the 20s. Yesterday, Bruno Fernandes does that a lot more. And you see the minute that ball comes out, Fernandes is running past Ronaldo straight out the blocks to try and close down the defender. And for me, it's just easy. You sit there and watch it and go, well, once this pass now gets past Ronaldo and Fernandes, that's two players out of that team already. And I spoke to my mate on the phone. He said yesterday it looked like Southampton had an extra player on the pitch. And I get what he means, because at stages yesterday, that's exactly what it looked like. A couple of passes and they're in behind. And like you say, that Hassan Hootel coming out after the game and identifying that, it's worrying. We spoke about it in the fan forum after the Burnley game. Even Sean Dyche, spotted a weakness. Yes, we had chances, goals ruled out and that, but against Burnley, we should have known again what to expect. And second half, they come out and we don't weather the storm that you should have expected. For me, Levin's made a good point there before, and we're on the subject of Ronaldo, and he said he's a poacher. Again, I don't want to really get on too much about Ronaldo, but what I'm trying to say is I don't think poachers are good enough for Manchester United. Have we ever played with a poacher? You look at the greats at Manchester United. For me, they set the tone for the press, that they hold the line, and the likes of Wayne Rooney, even I'll say Carlos Tevez, I'll say Ruud van Nistelrooy, players like that are intense, they press, they can hold the ball up, they can work that area. And when I look at Ronaldo yesterday, I'm like, it does kind of come from the front, and that kind of sets the tone.
Yeah, I mean, Levin, back on your structure side of it there, mate, in terms of structure, I think the instruction is a miss as well at the moment, because Kev just touched on Bruno Fernandes there. I'm not bringing the Bruno problem right now. I'm not saying Bruno is a problem, but the way he plays at the moment within this setup is not helping at all, because you bypass Bruno's one player who's doing the press. He's left that space in behind, and then you've got Scott McTominay to deal with, and Southampton dealt with that easily yesterday. I mean, the instruction from Ralph has to be there, Levin, surely. And Bruno can't do what he's doing. It just leaves us so short in the middle, and that was obvious yesterday. And I think that's where Kev's looking at Southampton having an extra man came in, because their midfield has a lot of time on the ball, mate, especially compared to what we had, because they were set up perfectly to high press us, and we've seen how that works. We didn't have it because we wasn't all together, mate. It just doesn't seem gelled enough, and the instruction doesn't, if there is any, does not seem to be coming across to the players to me from what I'm watching.
Yeah, that's a problem that we've had, but there's two parts to that, right? Because, you know, it's a combination of, we have players whose profiles aren't necessarily suited to going out there and pressing, and we know aren't maybe the hardest working of pressers in that regard. But there's a combination of two things, because the structure we actually have in place for our pressing when the opposition has settled possession isn't good enough either, right? And I wanted to mention this when Kev said it, because Kev, you're right. There were times when, you know, sort of just like Ronaldo up front, and you're looking at it going, you know, what's going on here? But at the same time, when we played Villa and Cavani started, we had the same exact thing. And we all credit Cavani with being this much, you know, more energetic striker who presses. And so why is that? You try to find the answer. And the reason is our wide players are instructed to sit too wide. Now, of course, you want your wide players back and helping defensively, but you also want them to be somewhat inverted so that they can apply pressure to the opposition centre-backs. There was way too many times, right? Even in the first half, right? Most people felt we had a good first half. We were up, whatever, cool. When you actually look at it, they had more possession than us by quite a bit.
And chances.
And you sort of look at it and you go, why does Southampton have more possession at Old Trafford against a United team that looks like they're playing quite well? And it's because we just weren't pressing well enough when they had the ball. Their centre-backs had way too much time on the ball. And so, yeah, of course, Ronaldo, we know he's not a great presser by any means, but even when it's Cavani in that situation, still, we allow the other team to have too much of the ball. And it's the reason why the other couple weeks ago, I was saying to people, look, as much as I rate Rangnick, and I love Ralph Rangnick, I think he's a great footballer mind, I'm concerned with some of the things he's implementing to the squad, because against better teams, we will get punished for that, right? Looking at first half, Southampton couldn't really punish us for it as much as they probably could have. Against a better team, if we just allow their centre-backs to have the ball, we're going to get rinsed. It's over. You know what I mean? So, you know, as much as we might try and blame a certain individual, we might go, oh, that's Ronaldo. Ronaldo can't offer us that. Some of that is to do with the structure as well. And you know, on Bruno, for example, Bruno's a player where you're right, he can be a bit too erratic. Sometimes he will just trigger the press on his own and nobody's really ready to back him. And ultimately, I think we're just going to have to hope that they keep hounding on him to maybe not do that, because the graph came out. There was a graph that came out which showed like the average positions, right? And it's why everybody picked up on Rashford not tracking back enough. And you look at it and it's by the way, it's insane. Like, it actually really embarrassing on Rashford's behalf. But when I didn't look at Rashford, I went, oh, Bruno's actually quite high as well. Like, the space behind Bruno, very exploitable, right? So a bunch of players are a bit ill-disciplined in that sense. And we need to sort of harping on that. But it's on the players and it's also on the structure in that regard to improve a bit.
I mean, Beth, if them players, like Levin said, I totally agree in terms, it is on the players to listen and put that in play. Is the only way to get that message across to drop them. We're talking about players who should be dropped today, because the only time I've seen Bruno and Rashford sort of react is when they've both been on the bench.
I don't think you can afford to with the squad depth we've got. Unfortunately, if we had Martial and Donny still in the club, then yeah, I would 100% be up for that. But we don't. And
on them two players, sorry, Beth, on them two players, then if you were going to drop them with what we've got, is there anyone that could do that role for you? Could you push Pogba forward and bring in Fred or Matic?
You could possibly do that. Yeah, to be fair, you could bring in Fred and push Pogba forward, but I think we need Bruno's creativity in there. And for me, I don't know if it's Bruno just not being disciplined. Is he being told? Because I completely agree with Levin. He's not disciplined enough, and he's not been for a while. And this has been pointed out numerous times. He won't be disciplined the whole game. But then that ball that he put through to Rashford that he should have scored, it's like that's kind of stuff is what you love to see from Bruno. But he can do that and still be disciplined. He's running into the corner flag. He's running down the wing. He's taking up people's positions. Like I said before, and like Levin said as well, when we were holding off on the press and then he'd go and trigger it and no one else was ready, is that other players not being ready for when Bruno's meant to be starting to lead the press, or is that him going without it supposed to be happening? I think on this, I can't believe that Rangnick isn't putting these things into place. And Bruno said before that he's a player that he needs freedom to be able to do what he does, but you can't be doing what he does. It does leave space in behind so much. And I think if Bruno was more disciplined, he'd be so much more effective in a game, but he just never sticks to that discipline. And if Ralph is telling him to do certain things and it's not happening, then he would have to be dropped. I would personally wouldn't want to drop Bruno, because if he is disciplined, I think him and Pogba in that midfield would be a dream pairing, but he needs to be more disciplined for that to work. And if he's not listening to instructions, like I would say about anyone, then they should be dropped, because you've got to listen to the manager, you've got to listen to the coach. And to be fair, we heard Rangnick say, I think it was on the Burnley game, that I think he called out the players actually. He said that if they would have stuck to the plan, we would have got a result out of that game. After half-time, players started to drift. So I don't know if that's old habits coming back into play, but maybe if the players aren't sticking to the plan, they need to be dropped. But then you look at his bench and the quality isn't there. Does he really want to be starting Lingard, who wanted to leave Manchester United? The other options are youth players. Mata, who he's not got the pace that you need to be starting in these Premier League games. So your option is pushing Pogba further forward, but then you bring liabilities back into the team in Fred. For me, I don't think Fred's good enough to be a starter for Manchester United. So it's hard with the amount of squad depth we've got.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the comments there are coming in on McTominay. He's another one on my list. I'm not ignoring it, guys. I'm trying to bring in everyone. No, there's just too many of them to get through in terms of who we want to see change on. But Beth just touched on it there. You bring McTominay out, you bring in Fred in. What's the lesser of two evil? I just don't know, mate, at the moment. And you've got to look at Ralph and feel sorry for him in a way that he's got a player there who is contracted to Manchester United, doing it across the East Lancs down at Everton in Donny van der Beek. But on Ralph's side of that, he did have a chance to play him and he didn't.
Yeah.
So you've got to then come back and say, look, who is making this decision here? Because you cannot have other managers in the Premier League using players that are better than ours in the position we need. It's just embarrassing for the football club, mate. And I don't see how McTominay comes out and it gets any better unless we change it up a bit and put Matic in there and play a different style, because he can't cover the ground McTominay does, but I do know that he will be strict in his position and stay there. Is Matic an option, Kev?
He certainly is. Certainly is.
I mean, he wasn't fit yesterday, to be fair, so that's why. And Fred wasn't fit, so McTominay had to play, guys. So let's just get that straight.
Yeah.
There wasn't any available options there. But when fit, does Matic have to be considered now? Because we've seen the limitations of McTominay week in, week out. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. But right now, in the position we're in, we need control more than anything, I think, mate.
Control and discipline. You will get that from Matic. Now, the main question over that is, how long can he do it for? You'll hear some people say he can only play 60 minutes of a game. We're just going to have to use him. You know, he's a Manchester United player, and if we have to go down that road, we have to do it. The worrying thing, again, Manchester United is going to be this summer for me. The amount of players that are going to leave. You could literally reel off 8 or 9 players that could possibly leave Manchester United. And the one big worry, which has been a concern anyway for Manchester United fans, is that midfield area. You know, and under this current ownership and the way that Manchester United work, it would not surprise me. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we lose an 80 million whatever asset or 90 million in Paul Pogba. He leaves on a free transfer, and Man United will probably recall Garner. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but again, this is where we're at with Manchester United at the minute. It's almost like, well, we'll bring him back in, you know, and that's that issue solved, which it isn't, is it? And again, I'm talking to my mate yesterday. Wayne Rooney was bang on with Manchester United, saying that the sales of Ronaldo and Tevez, when he questioned them at that time. And I think yesterday in 2011 was the day that Wayne Rooney scored that overhead kick against Manchester City. That was 2011. And you look at the direction that them clubs have gone in since then. Yeah. Manchester United have gone like this, and Manchester City have gone like that. And that's, on this day, when you see it on your phone, on this day in 2011, I'm like, God, I remember being at Old Trafford for that. We were good then.
Damn them
we used to win
Facebook memories.
yeah. But it's just sad, isn't it?
Go on, Beth.
I was going to say, I was just thinking then, I don't feel like we've not seen it, but in this setup we've got now, it would have been interesting to see McTominay, Donny and Pogba playing in midfield together. I don't think we've really seen Pogba and Donny play much together in the midfield. I think they could have actually really complemented each other. And when you need a midfielder to be a little bit more disciplined and keep the ball better than Bruno does, Donny is a good option for that. We saw him at Everton linking the play up really well and getting in some really good positions defensively and offensively. So, I mean, whoever let him not get any game time and then ship him off when we've got no midfield as it is just, I don't understand it.
Look, it's the reason why people always said they wanted to see Martial, Pogba, Sancho, and Donny play together, because those are all players who combination plays is really good, right? Obviously, we can't see that with some of them. But on the Ricky team from way earlier, right? I don't agree with Ricky's team because I think it has some obvious issues that would get exploited. I see what he's getting at, right? Because you look at all those players and they're all players who, in the final third, their decision-making, it's going to be on point. Like, you just know, more times than not, the decision-making in the final third is going to be on point, which is something we've lacked significantly. And Ralph's talked about in basically every single press conference where we need to get better with our decision-making. So as much as I don't necessarily fully agree with the team, I hear what Ricky's saying in that regard.
Yeah, it could boil down to the fact that right now we can't be safe. We have to really just go for it right now. We're not in a position to be safe. Killer PJ Bottoms, them Kev, by the way. Thanks for sharing that.
I just noticed that they cracked in the camera and I was trying to witch my foot.
Okay, I'm going to pull you on that one, mate. Loving it. Kev's cozy in the PJs. Yeah. Clip. Anyway, never mind, moving on. But yeah, I think we've been forced into this position. I'm thinking now that I think Ralph has said he will, and we all know the contract situation with Ralph going upstairs. I would not be surprised if that didn't happen at the end of the season because of what's happened. I really wouldn't. The fact that Fletcher is there next to him, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like anyone is in control. And really, you want that manager. I seen Hasenhüttl on the sideline. That's it. That's all I seen for Southampton yesterday. His vision, everything he wanted on that pitch. They played Hasenhüttl football. I didn't know who it was. United again. It's like a tag team. Your turn, up you go, and then another one comes up. Your turn. It's like a conveyor belt. And I had a vlog the other day. It's like I think the Burnley one. My title was a conveyor belt of crap. It's basically what it is at United at the moment. It's like one player comes on exactly the same. I just don't see the Ralph message getting across. That's what I'm not seeing. And then the players, and you just got to think, it's like, who is calling the shots at Manchester United? Because the first thing that happened after the Burnley game was the shirt sponsorship deal comes out. And lo and behold, we all know, first face that comes up with that on, Mr. MBE himself, Marcus Rashford. And then Cristiano Ronaldo goes front and centre, slap bang on the front of Old Trafford. The guy's not going to be here at the end of the season if we don't make Champions League, in my opinion. It's like we're just pinning everything on, and the commercial side of the football club is completely taking over everything. And this is why I would not be surprised if Hasenhüttl walked at the end of the season, because he's got no chance upstairs of convincing anybody. And all I see it as is a football guy that the bankers can blame when it goes wrong on the pitch. Well, we brought in the football man you all wanted and it's not worked. It's another blame man for me. And it's hiding bigger issues right now. But that is that. I mean, it's hard to accept at the moment, but I do believe, I don't know what you think, Kev, I think we need to take a bit of a fall to come back up. And if it means not making top four and a few of these big players leaving, maybe that's the sort of start from scratch base that we need right now, because we can't look at this as a quick fix. And top four for me and the owners looking down on it would be a quick fix.
Short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the way I'd look at it. But at the same time, I'm going to totally contradict myself, because under this ownership, and as you rightly say there, Manchester United announcing that they've got 20 million for somebody to sponsor the training ground kit. that just shows you where Manchester United are at the minute. And Man United only have to tie up deals like that to compensate for them not being in the Champions League next season. And all of a sudden it becomes very clear what this ownership is all about. Is it about being competitive on the field? It isn't. And there's a reason that they signed up for the Super League, because there was no chance of relegation. So it's just money, money, money. And that's where we are with Manchester United at the minute. And touching back on when Manchester United sold Ronaldo, who did we replace Ronaldo with? You know, this is where we look back and you go, where did the problems start, Manchester United? We sold an absolute world star that we could not keep, fair enough. But that 80 million that was sat there, we go and sign who? Antonio Valencia, Obertan, and Michael Owen on a free transfer. And you can go back through all that and you look and you think, is that really good enough for the biggest club in the world? You know, to sell the best player and replace him with Obertan, Owen, and Valencia. And it's just gone on and on and on. And I'm fed. Do you know, I'm fed up of even going to Old Trafford yesterday and seeing that in my face, you know, the new training ground thing. And I think this is just what it's all about for them. And let's not forget, we've signed Ronaldo's son this week. Another, you know, I think it was almost cringy the way they've done it. There's another lad that signed for Manchester United that stood with him. No mention of him. It's just Ronaldo's son signed. He's got the 7 shirt like his dad had, you know, and it's all kind of spun on you. And I'm just like, right, okay, well, can he play now? You know, can he play on the left? Is he fit enough to play against Brighton this week?
He'll believe in when his dad gets off. So
yeah. We've got Rooney and Ronaldo's sons at United in the academy. You know, it's like, all right, we'll wait a few years and wait until they're fit to play, and we'll see where we're at. But
yeah, guys, there's so much we can get into on this, but we have not got enough time because after tomorrow we've got bleeding Brighton, and it all starts again, rinse and repeat. Hopefully not, but for tonight we are done and dusted. Levin, cheers for coming on, mate. Loved your input tonight, pal. Loving that structure.
It's always a pleasure being on, and I'll see you guys all at Brighton.
Oh, you will, mate. You will.
Oh, you coming?
No, I'm not. I got work actually. But, see you in see you on the
Beth excited.
He's coming.
Beth wants to do part 2 of our big small picture series. That's what
We need to get another one.
Kev, as always, mate, in the killer PJ Bottoms. Cheers for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, enjoyed that. I knew it was going to be an interesting show this evening because, like you quite rightly said, I think we could probably go on for another hour here, and there's so much to talk about. I had so much to say, and well, I've cleared it off my chest anyway. I feel much better now. Thanks.
Go and pour another red, mate.
I'm gonna
put your feet up. Yeah,
thank you. In the bottom.
Beth, cheers for coming on.
Yeah, good to talk through everything. Hopefully we're a bit more positive next week, but I'll believe it when I see it. Kev, you need to get the matching hat to them pajamas and do a full outfit one.
Yeah, you do, mate.
For Brighton.
You do. We will see you all at Old Trafford if you are going for the Brighton game. Me and Beth will be there. So come over and have a chat outside the East Stand. We'll be there talking. If you want to get yourself on and have your say as well. And we will try and get everyone on. Hopefully no technical issues this time. Guys, for now, we are out of here. Give the video a like on your way out. Subscribe to United Stands. We will see you through the week. We're back tomorrow. Mark is back tomorrow morning. And we go again. Everybody, it's that famous words. United Stand goes again.
We go again.
Rinse and repeat. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's a better result against Brighton. Jesus, Brighton. But for now, that's it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your